Gary, tell me a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
Well, I was born in Austin, Texas in the early 1960s, 1963. In fact, 6, 7 months before John F. Kennedy was assassinated. So, when I'm 100 years old, I might be one of the only people on the earth that was here when he was actually alive. And I don't remember that, but I remember growing up in this sort of conservative, religious situation. I had 2 older brothers. My dad had gone to the University of Texas in 1957, and that was Darrell Royal's first year as the head coach of the football team at the University of Texas. And both of my parents were from a small town called Florence, Texas, north of Austin. And so after a couple of years and 11 concussions, my dad stopped playing football and had 3 sons. And I was the last of those 3. My parents had my younger brother Jeff and Jennifer later in the mid-70s, but I sort of grew up as the youngest of 3 boys, and that really formed my childhood. And I got picked on a lot, and it was just a rough time. I had to learn how to defend myself and really get tough around my 2 older brothers. So I just remember Malcolm X, who's just one of my heroes. I just love Malcolm X, but I remember him being assassinated in 1964. I remember MLK being assassinated, and I think like 67. I remember Robert Kennedy being assassinated in 68. I remember Governor Wallace being shot. And so I remember watching the Vietnam War on television at night, not knowing what was going on. So I must say, when I was growing up, I was alive when the shooter killed people out of the tower at the University of Texas. And that was a big deal. Every time we drove down the highway and we saw the UT Tower, I would think about that. And those things really had an impact on my life and on my childhood. Now, because we were in this conservative religion, we looked at so-called hippies or radical left. I looked at all of those people differently than I looked at them now, because I was just a product of the times. And so all of those things were happening in my childhood. And for some, obviously because of my parents, we were all conservative, and I sort of saw the world through that lens. But ultimately, my parents moved us all to Eagle River, Alaska in 1974. I was 11 years old, and I didn't want to go. But we moved. We moved to Eagle River, Alaska, and I went to Chugiak High School. I graduated from Chugiak in 1981. And that changed all of our lives. Everything was different when we moved up there. And it was still difficult to be in Alaska in the 70s. I mean, I got picked on a lot in school. And I went to high school. The 7th graders were with the senior high school. So in 7th grade, you might be 13 years old, and they're 17 and 18-year-old seniors, picking on the little kids. So that formed me more than anything. And I would probably say that one of the proudest things in my whole life is that by the time our class graduated in 1981, we made it unpopular to pick on little kids. In fact, we would protect the little kids. We didn't allow bullying. And this was back before anti-bullying was popular. But because I became a leader in the school, and I wrestled and played football and things like that. In fact, I was a student body president. When I became a leader in the high school, there was no bullying. I didn't allow anybody to bully any of the little kids. And so that sort of formed my whole, not just childhood, but my adulthood and on into my professional life. I don't like bullies. I don't like bigger people picking on littler people. So I went to college. I went to University of Northern Colorado up here in Greeley. And after my first year in college, I went back up to Anchorage. I always worked with my dad. He was a home builder. And one of the reasons I went to college is to try to, get out of the construction business. And one night early in the summer of 1982, I was driving back from Anchorage to Eagle River. And I was on a date with a young gal that I knew from high school. And the car in front of me hit a moose. So we both pulled over and we were helping these people with this moose, and it was still alive, kind of kicking around. All the traffic backed up, and a motorcycle went down the middle of the stopped traffic and hit that clearing where we were at. And like bowling pins, he started knocking people off, and he hit the moose and wrecked, and he hit me from behind and shattered my right leg. So that sort of ended my athletic career, and I started reading for the first time. I hardly knew how to read or write, quite frankly. I graduated from high school, I hardly knew how to read or write because I was just having fun and playing sports and being a kid and never thinking I was going to go to college. Never thought I was going to go to college. But when I got in that accident, something changed. My whole life changed. And I started reading books. I transferred to UT. I graduated from UT. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to go to law school. I think I'm going to be a lawyer. And I saw my dad as a home builder. And anyone who's been in the home building business knows it's just boom and bust. You make a bunch of money, and then here comes the IRS, and here comes the bank, and they take all your money. And then the economy goes down, and then it goes back up, and then it goes back down. So I just swore I would not live that life. I would not lead that life of just depending upon, the up and down of the economy and just killing myself on job sites like I saw my dad do my whole life, his whole life. And so I went to the University of San Diego in 1987. I'd just gone out there for the summer. And then when I got to San Diego, I didn't leave. I applied late, actually. I applied late and I got in on a waiting list. I got in. And those were the 3 best years of my life. I still have really close friends that I keep in contact with to this day who are California attorneys. And I moved to Denver after graduation. I was going to go back to Eagle River, but I got married. I moved to Denver. I have 2 lovely older children who are, one's graduated from CU and one's at CU right now. And I got remarried in 2008, and since then I have 2 smaller children, and they're burning up the track now. So 4 daughters and a busy small practice. I've been in private practice almost my whole career, criminal lawyer. I started in the DA's office. I started in the Adams County DA's office, but I only worked there for like 18 months. And then I went into criminal law, personal injury, divorce law, contract, just anything that came through the door. But over time, I've sort of specialized in criminal law. But when you do criminal law, you practice constitutional law. Because in every case, there's an issue with regard to the stop or the arrest or statements or roadsides in a DUI or the search of someone's trunk in a drug case or whatever the matter is. There's always a constitutional issue. And so that got me immersed into the Constitution and really learning what it meant and not just the suppression of evidence in a criminal case, but our rights generally to freedom of speech and due process, not only in a criminal context, but within a civil context. And so as the years went by, I found myself in federal court suing on behalf of a client or, an individual that had been wrongfully arrested in a protest or something like that. So sort of dipping my toe into the civil world of civil rights violations, that got me interested in things like this case. When you see people's rights get violated, it sends me back to when I was a kid and wanting to stand up for the little person that's getting bullied by a bigger person. And in the constitutional law context, that means like a state actor, not just a police officer and not just a governor, but really anyone that's working for the government or closely connected to the government or jointly with the government could be considered a state actor. And that's what we're dealing with in the Dominion case, of course. Is Dominion Voting Systems, Inc. a state actor? Is Facebook a state actor? Is Mark Zuckerberg a state actor? Of course, they're private businesses or individuals, private persons, if you will. But when you start getting interconnected with a government function, then you become a state actor, particularly when that government function is an election. So that's sort of from birth till now why I'm here, why I became a lawyer, and why I'm in this case.